Can you make Gyokuro in a Gaiwan? In this video, we're going to find out. We're going to be using a simplified Gongfu method to prepare a Saimidori Gyokuro and seeing how it compares to the Kyusu Teapot. How will this Gyokuro Gongfu experiment turn out? Let's find out. So before we brew up this tea, let's see what we're working with. The Gaiwan is perhaps the simplest tool for brewing tea, consisting of a bowl and a lid. The loose leaf tea and hot water is placed in the bowl, and when the brewing is complete, the tea is poured out with the lid positioned at a slight gap in order to sift out the tea leaves. The Gaiwan is used more commonly for Chinese teas as part of the Gongfu brewing method. This method uses lots of tea leaves, very little water, and short, rapid infusions. The flavor of the tea is spread out across many different infusions, and in some cases over a dozen. Each infusion tastes slightly different, and it gives the opportunity for a tea drinker to experience different aspects of the tea. You can really get to know a tea by tasting it in different stages like this. The Gaiwan is great for brewing larger leaf teas, but sometimes it can be difficult for smaller leaf teas like Japanese sencha. The reason is that you need to really position the lid carefully so none of the small leaves end up in your cup. This is one of the reasons why the Kyusu teapot with its built-in strainer is considered to be the best choice for brewing Japanese green teas. In this video, we're going to attempt a Gyokuro Gongfu brewing. Gyokuro is the most sought-after leaf tea in Japan, and it was once the tea of choice for the emperor himself. It's shaded for a long period of time, and during that time, the leaves develop a distinct sweet and savory flavor, which is unlike any other tea on earth. Once the leaves are harvested, they are carefully steamed and rolled into these tight needle shapes. These larger leaves are what makes the Gyokuro Gongfu experiment possible. So without further ado, let's learn how to brew Gyokuro in a Gaiwan. First, measure out 3 to 5 grams of Gyokuro tea leaves. For this, I'm using the Gyokuro Cha Meijin, one of the top Gyokuro teas from Mr. Sakamoto that has a smooth and sweet flavor. You can get some at neoteas.com and we'll ship it to you for free. If you have a smaller Gaiwan like this 70 milliliter one, you can use 3 grams, but in a normal size Gaiwan, 5 would be perfect. Next, you'll want to top up the Gaiwan with warm water. For Gyokuro, we recommend using a lower water temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The reason for this is that Gyokuro is meant to be a celebration of these sweet and savory flavors, which are best extracted at a lower temperature so they don't need to compete with the bitterness that comes with higher temperature brewings. Because you're using so much leaves and so little water, you only want to brew the tea for about 10 seconds. Notice I'm setting the aperture super tight on this lid so none of the leaves end up in the cup. Even though I took this precaution, it still seems like some of the leaves made it inside the cup, which is okay. If we take a look at the leaves, you see they are not even close to opened up. For this method of brewing, this is not a problem for right now. For the next infusion, I will use the same amount of water and the same temperature, but I will add 5 seconds to the brewing time. This is common for this brewing method, and it is actually something I will repeat in the 3rd and 4th brewings. With each brewing, the leaves are opening up a little bit more and the tea is extracting more flavor. While a typical Gyokuro brewing in a Kyusu teapot will release most of the flavor into one glorious infusion, this method allows you to experience it in small doses over multiple infusions. So as a refresher, we're using 10 seconds for the first brewing, 15 seconds for the second, 20 seconds for the third, and 25 seconds for the fourth. You will notice when I compare the colors of each infusion, they are all slightly different. I like to think of these 4 as different layers of the tea. The first infusion is like the outermost layer. You're getting the surface level aromatics of the tea. With such a short infusion, you aren't really even getting to the flavor, just the aroma. The second infusion offers the first glimpse of the flavor. This is where you start to experience that trademark savory or umami flavor that Gyokuro tea is famous for. The infusion is still short, however, and the savory taste doesn't linger on the palate too long. The third infusion is the strongest in my view. With a longer brewing time and half-open tea leaves, you are able to experience the full effect of the Gyokuro. You can also feel the denser texture as it glides over your tongue, which is part of the Gyokuro drinking experience. The fourth infusion begins to introduce an element of freshness and a light astringency. The longer brewing time allows the leaves to release some of their grassy and vegetal flavors. This is not as smooth as the second and third infusions, but it's still enjoyable. I want to compare this drinking experience to the Kyusu teapot, which is what I would normally use for Gyokuro. I'm going to be using 5 grams of leaves, approximately 150 milliliters of water, and a brewing time of 2 minutes. This long brewing time is used for Gyokuro to give the leaves enough space to expand and release their flavor into the water. Instead of getting 4 layers to the tea, you get to experience the complexity all at once. In this one cup, you get the sweetness, the umami, the vegetal flavor, and the aroma all in one. I'm a big fan of the Gongfu method, and I use it to evaluate a lot of different types of teas, but in my view, it's not the best for Gyokuro for a few reasons. One, it's still hard to keep the leaves out of your cup because although the leaves are larger, they are thinly rolled enough to pass through the gap in the lid. Also, because Gyokuro is so tightly rolled, it really does need the longer brewing time. The first two brewings were a bit light, and the third one was quite strong. I would rather have 150 milliliters of sweet and savory Gyokuro. For this reason, I recommend to use either a clay Kyusu teapot, a shibori dashi, or a whole hin for brewing Gyokuro. These tools are the best when it comes to really giving Gyokuro the opportunity it deserves. Thank you all so much for tuning into this Gyokuro Gongfu experiment. I hope you found it helpful when it comes to learning how to brew Gyokuro in a Gaiwan. If you want to try out some Gyokuro tea or the clay Kyusu teapot for yourself, you can support our channel by heading to neoteas.com and picking up some tea supplies. Until then, we'll see you next time.